Welcome everyone. In this video, I'm going to go over the first game that I played this week in my first classical chess game in over a year. I think it was like about a year and a half. I won both games this weekend, which is pretty cool. And I figured I would use this as an example to show you guys, in my opinion, the key takeaway, which is the importance of attacking in chess, of not playing passively. So I'm going to switch my view here. My FIDE classical rating is 1615 right now. That was, once again, from when I played it like a year and a half ago. Oh, and by the way, my opponent is a 1758, it looks like. So, you know, according to his rating, a stronger opponent. And, well, you guys will see what happens. So we get e4 on the board. I, as you know, play d5, Scandinavian. So we get a knight f6, Scandinavian. And I should note that I was hungover and I didn't study before. I don't recommend doing that, but I don't know. That's just how it was. And I just decided, look, I know the opening well enough. They probably don't see this a whole lot, so it's not like I'm playing a Roy Lopez and, you know, they've been like going over all their openings or something. I don't know. Anywho, so I saw knight c3 and I'm like, okay, great. This is not going into like some line that I know really well. I know the general ideas, but we get to this position. And this is kind of the first key moment when my opponent played d3. I kind of just thought to myself, I'm almost positive that's not the best move. And right away, as you can tell, it just looks kind of passive, right? The bishop, like bishop to e2, there was no real need to play that, although it looks like it's fine, it's theory, but like I hadn't played bishop g4, just kind of a somewhat of a passive setup. They could have gone for, well, they couldn't have gone for this, but they could have developed like right away knight c3, for example, hit my queen, but they decided to go for this. And then d3 just looked really like kind of passive. And so right away, what I want to show you guys in this video is that through these tiny little mistakes or tiny little opportunities where you could play something more aggressive and, you know, attacking, if you opt for like a more passive setup, oftentimes what happens is if your opponent manages to capitalize on those mistakes, you're going to find yourself little by little in sometimes a completely lost position, or if not, you know, a losing position. And in a classical game, that's enough, right? Like one pawn can be enough to win, especially at this rating, I would say. You know, really, if you're a pawn up and your position's better, you should in most cases be able to convert that. Anyhow, so d3, I played e5, and game goes on. I was expecting knight c3, so, you know, keep in mind, I'm like really thinking here, I'm calculating, but trying to be conscientious of my time as well. I chose to go queen back to d8, which I really don't typically play. I just didn't want to go into like a queen a5, basically transposing to a queen a5 line where the bishop comes out and you have to be very careful not to get your queen trapped. So it turns out it was actually the best move. And then basically, as you guys will see, my opponent has placed their two bishops on the second rank, which is fine, but again, kind of passive. I decided to go for a more aggressive setup. So bishop c5 and then bishop f5, which might look a little bit weird, but the idea is not to like put pressure on d3. The idea is to add more pressure actually to e4, because I might go e4. And so either way, you can kind of tell like my setup is looking a little bit more aggressive, right? My pieces are a little bit closer to my opponent's side of the board. Game goes on. They play a3, which is pretty typical. I went queen d7, which when I analyzed it yesterday, I actually said it was a mistake, but it looks like it's just fine, you know? And here, so like, again, my opponent could play b4 right away, and the computer actually says b4 is best. I don't really know why they didn't, but you'll see how, okay, they decided to go rook b1 first, and it's just too slow, right? It's too slow. They didn't need to do that. It gives me time to kind of consolidate. So I played a3, a6. After some calculation, I'm trying to remember everything I was thinking here, but yeah, to be honest, I don't remember every little thought that I had in this position. I think I was just thinking, yeah, bishop back just looks really passive. I like my bishop on this diagonal. I want to keep it there, so I'll play a3 and then be able to just drop back. I was just calculating like, okay, what happens after b5? Anyhow, this was bishop e3 was the first moment where I was like, okay, my opponent is starting to challenge me. They're trying to trade off their worst bishop for my better bishop. And, but you know, you'll notice, guys, that this already kind of wastes the tempo. They put their bishop first on d2. then they're spending an entire move to move that same piece again. My thinking process, and this is not to say that I'm like an excellent player. I'm just trying to give some advice because I get a lot of people who ask, what does it take to get from like 1700 elo online to like 1900, maybe 2000. These little things really matter. Tempo or tempi really matter. So if you're wasting moves like this, I mean, this isn't a totally wasted move. I think it's fine. It challenges my bishop, but you see what I mean, right? They're moving the same piece twice, even though they are fully developed now, almost after the queen comes up. So I didn't want to, I certainly didn't want to take. That would be a mistake. I'm pretty sure the computer agrees. I'm just giving my opponent this huge center, no open F file. I therefore opted for queen e7, just because, takes, and they can't play b4 because I can take the knight. They went knight d2, which the computer agrees with. But again, I was kind of just happy to see because it's like, they're just so, it's solid, but I was just looking for ways to attack. And I felt like, I know I'm not worse, but I knew that there was chances to make stuff happen. And so I decided to stick a knight on d4 and thought, how bad can this really be? I could take the bishop if I want to, but if not, I have a nice knight in the center and they can't really do that. Their pieces are being constricted. I'm trying to like restrict white's pieces and grab space for myself. A bishop takes, which was an inaccuracy, and then e takes d4, which was also an inaccuracy. But I thought, hey, this is only as bad as, your opponent is able to like punish it, and they didn't. They went back to a very passive square right away. I'm like, okay, there's no way. Like, I'm better. I have to be slightly better here. This just looks like a bad move. They can't even go, jump back into the position because I'll just take and win a pawn. So I decided, okay, my bishop now is no longer as useful because I'm not threatening like e4. I'm going to drop back, attack the knight. So I'm improving my bishop with tempo. Now my opponent has to defend. They can't go really, I mean, they could go back this way, but just that looks so bad. So they defend with a1. Little by little, as you guys are seeing, these tiny little, not mistakes, but these tiny little passive moves where my opponent is slowly retreating, right? Their pieces are all the way back here, and I'm slowly trying to improve my pieces is how I feel like this game, how I ended up winning this game. I castled, which computer doesn't love. Looks like computer on h5, but I don't tend to play like something like h6 is okay, but like h5, unless I really see the point, I am not always going to play that, especially in a classical game. I just decided, look, let's just take this chance to castle. Bishop f3, this was another really good move. I saw that and I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure that's probably the best move, if not a good move. Their bishop was so passive there. Now they're on a nice diagonal and they're putting some pressure on me. After a pretty long think, I think I took a while for this move. Played c6, which looks like the computer's okay with. We get rook e1, we saw that coming, and then knight e4, which I actually think I missed. I decided to take. I was like, look, they're hitting my bishop and my knight. I was thinking briefly, what if I just drop the bishop back and then like takes. That obviously looks great for me, but they don't need to take, right? So I just thought, look, let's just simplify, keep my pieces where they are in a kind of aggressive setup. I don't want to move my bishop backwards, so I'm not going to. I keep my bishop there. They take, and then I decided to play g6 because my thought process here was, well, look, I've got the bishop pair, number one. My opponent only has a light square bishop. Almost all of these pawns are going to be on light squares. How are you going to attack me on the dark squares? Your knight is virtually out of the game. Even if you manage to get like a queen over on the dark squares, which as you guys will see happens, I just thought, how bad can this really be? It's not that weakening. I wanted queen b6, which, okay, I guess makes sense. But I think this move makes sense, seeing as though my opponent didn't like punish it. And so anyways, they bring the queen down. I decided to build a battery just because I thought, well, maybe, they have to play g3, and then maybe I can like poke around in the light squares because I have the bishop pair, or just figure something out, maybe f5, f4. So at this point, I was already looking at f5, f4. That was why I decided to play rook a to e8 instead of rook f to e8, because I wanted this rook here behind the pawn to launch an attack. I just have a lot of pieces aimed at the f4 square, and then if I can lodge, I don't know, if I can lodge the pawn on f3, maybe I can get some checkmates. I don't know. That was my thought process. And then my opponent went for queen h6. And so like at this point, really, I was just thinking, okay, I know that I'm better, and I think I should be winning this. Simply because there's no threats here really at all. Okay, the bishop is aimed this way, but there's way too much protection on this G6 pawn. And then more importantly, this was a very exciting moment in the game because I'm sitting there and I kind of have this, it's so gratifying when you have a moment, when you spot a tactic, you know, both you and your opponent are sitting at the board. It's like 40 minutes in, whatever. And then all of a sudden you see the move that like probably wins the game. And I'm like, wait a second. I start like thinking and and eventually I'm like, yep, it works. I take on A2. I don't know how long it took for my opponent to realize it, but they took a few minutes, at least a few minutes to think. And I think they must have realized that this is just completely winning now. I'm winning a piece, basically. I did not see that they could play B3, but it doesn't really matter because, yeah, at this point, for those of you guys who aren't seeing the tactic, bishop takes. This rook was tied down defending that knight the whole time, and so the rook is overloaded. So he has to take here, otherwise he's losing a piece. And now this rook is undefended. I can play f5. This bishop can't go back anywhere to like protect the rook. So that is, whoops, not what they played. They played b3. And then I play f5. Computer wants queen a5. But that's a little bit fancy. I just was thinking, look, let's just like win the free piece. They take the bishop, I take, and I'm basically a clean piece up, although my opponent has a pawn for the piece. I decided to go rook f8 to f3. My thinking here, and I'm pretty proud of this move as well, not only because it's the best move, but I'm happy because it shows that I know how to convert. I'm a piece up and I'm thinking, okay, how can I convert this? And my thought process was like, well, if I can freeze these pawns here and just pile up on the f2 pawn, at the very least, I'll just force a bunch of trades. I'm a piece up. That's a winning endgame. So that's what I did. My opponent is now forced to defend. I'm going to double up the rooks. Now I'm going to triple and get a Alekine's gun set up. And this bishop I knew could join the attack. So now my opponent is forced to go back, defend, and then I think right around here, I did spot that there was a winning move here, which was to play d3 because he has to take or do something because I'm hitting the rook, and that opens my bishop and allows me to take. I did miss, let's see here, I did miss that they could actually play c3 and open up the other rook. So that's why I was like, oh wait, I can't actually play this now because then he takes and he's adding another defender. So my opponent played e5. I kind of wasted a move with queen f5. Oh, interesting. Okay, so when I analyzed this yesterday, the computer marked it as a mistake, but I must not have had the move orders right because now it says it's fine. It's an excellent move. But I believe that the best move was still d3. Does this work though? No, so I can't take. It wants queen d5. That's interesting. Yeah, so they brought the king down on g2, which was okay, I guess. I'm not really sure what the thought process was there. It doesn't add any more protection. It kind of just, to me, looks like it kind of wasted a move, but I was pretty sure it was lost anyway. So they went rook a1, and yeah, that's when I saw, okay, I can play d3. I'm almost certain that's the winning move because I'm going to force all the trades and just give my opponent like no chances of counterplay. That's what we get. I trade everything, and now I am a rook and a bishop versus a rook. And this is now just cleaning up. I decided to go for bishop here just to prevent these pawns from ever really being connected. And then I'm just going to march my king in. I'm going to defend. And this move kind of surprised me as well. Normally you're not supposed to trade when you're down material. This kind of just makes it easier for me. Although it does, create 3 potentially connected pawns. It's just totally winning for black. And the rest was just kind of technique here. We get to somewhere around here, and then I think I noted some of the moves wrong. So I'll just my opponent resigned a few moves after this, and so it's cool. There were 5 of us in our team, I believe, that day. I was the second table, so I was the second highest rated in the club that I'm playing in right now. And yeah, like it was honestly really encouraging because it's the first time I've played over the board chess in, like I said, quite a while. And when you're playing rapid chess, you lose a lot, you win a lot, you lose a lot. The clock is such a big factor. Whereas in classical, I had 1 hour 30 seconds plus 30 seconds per move. It's like a 3 to 4 hour game, or let's say maybe 2 to 3 hour game. And so time is still less of a factor, right? And yeah, lots of thoughts and reflections on that, but it's definitely just encouraging to see that that when you practice something a lot, it pays off. These were opponents, like I said, these were two older gentlemen that I played this weekend. So I just don't see them like hopping on chess.com, grinding out, trying to get to like a certain rating. And like, I don't see them doing that all the time. I think that they probably play seriously, but also a little bit more recreationally. And so, yeah, but in terms of the takeaway, is you guys can let me know what you think in the comments. But for me, the big takeaway was tactics, right? If I had not spotted the tactic of bishop takes a2, then this is, let's see here. If I had not spotted this winning tactic, okay, let's say if I just make some random move. What's like a normal move? I don't know. Let's imagine like, oh, let's double up the rooks. Now all of a sudden, black is still better, but it's not completely winning. So tactics definitely important, guys. Definitely you need to be aware of tactics when they're there, have that tactical awareness, which just comes from recognizing, things in the position. Like this, my opponent is in a passive position. Their knight is all the way on the edge of the board on the second rank. That can't be good. And the way I'm finding these tactics and trying to find attacking moves, again, even though this is not a perfect game, the way that I'm finding those is just like kind of noting to myself as I'm playing, hey, that doesn't look like a good move. It's for sure not the best move. Who cares if you're wrong, right? Sometimes you look at the analysis afterwards and you think, oh, okay, well, yeah, I was wrong. That's the worst that really happens. And the best that happens is that you are confident in yourself. You don't have the Levy syndrome where you're constantly thinking your opponent is better than you. That you got to get that out of there, guys. Seriously, get that out of there. No matter how strong an opponent you are facing, you have got to have this mentality when you're facing your opponents, regardless of their rating. I could have, right, gone into this match versus an opponent that is rated 150 elo points higher than me, even more than that. Well, no, 150 elo points higher. And I could have been like, oh, this is going to be hard. They're stronger than me, but that you just can't do that. So this thinking process is definitely what helped me, just noting like, okay, that's a bad move. This is really passive. Look at my position and just noting to yourself, what advantages do you have in the position in the game and what can you do to improve on them? That also means you need to, be careful and see what attacks and threats and whatnot your opponent might have. Of course, you need to calculate the best moves for your opponent, but really important to do this. And then attack. You gotta attack. You gotta play attacking chess. My advice to you all, regardless of what your rating is to attack and play attacking moves. I even did a chess lesson with a FIDE master one time. I only did one lesson with him because it was in Spanish and I didn't speak Spanish really well enough. But the entire lesson, this guy's entire lesson was attack. He's like, what's the most important thing in chess? Or something like that. He's like, attack. You have to attack because when you attack, you force your opponent to defend and slowly force them into more passive position. And for those of you who might be beginners, it's good to have that mindset, but what attacking might be is just literally make sure you're developing your pieces quickly. Make sure that you're not, and I know this looks kind of silly, but like as I'm saying this, I'm moving my queen back and I'm developing it, but that's the Scandinavian. In general though, look, I'm trying to develop my pieces quickly on active squares, right? This, I could have gone, for example, bishop, I don't know, even like bishop d6 looks pretty, except that it doesn't work because knight b5 is, yeah, like let's just see. Bishop here. Oh, it's actually best. The computer likes it. Knight b5. Probably it's just saying let them take you and get a big center, but you see what I mean, right? I could have gone bishop e7, but it's not, it's good, but it's definitely better on a more active square like this. bishop d6 is okay, I guess, because you can eventually, maybe the castle, and eventually you can go e4, open up the bishop on a nice diagonal, bring the queen in, bishop, whatever. So develop your pieces, get your pieces out. Don't move the same piece twice. Just follow the rules, right? These are the chess like foundational principles. Follow them and play attacking chess, and just be confident with yourself, even if there's no reason to be. So that is the takeaway from game one. Stay tuned. I'm going to film here the recap for game two, which was also cool, and I also won. And yeah, I'm going to be playing a lot more over the board chess, so I will be doing more of these recaps and still doing the journey to 2000. But yeah, I'll be playing when I can. I'm not taking it quite as seriously. Hopefully, all of the studying and practicing that I'm doing for the over the board games will help my rapid games. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next video.